Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy-award winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
I don't think he ever wanted her body to be found. I think he knew his days were numbered. This is the latest information we're getting on Barry Morphew from a former neighbor of his who says basically carried a shotgun out and tried to run off an elderly neighbor back in the day when they were looking for Suzanne Morphew. Barry Morphew reindicted a second time, charged a second time here in the murder of former wife Suzanne Morphew, who went missing on Mother's Day 2020. And who better to break this all down? And I've got to be precise here because the great Phil Waters likes to be positioned. So I've got to bring in Scott Duffey first. Special Agent Scott Duffey of the Wilmington office, the residency, as they say in the FBI, and also the current director of the Wilmington University Criminal Justice Institute. And then perhaps America's best known, most beloved, certainly most respected detective and the owner and founder of Kindred Spirits Investigations, Phil Waters. We are back. We are back. We are back. We are back for Great Scott. It's your true crime, Phil. It's your true crime, Phil. So we are talking Barry Morphew. We've been talking about a bunch of other things. You got Sean Diddy Combs closings that I just went through. I had people yelling at me because I was giving some side takes on the closing arguments today, and people don't like that. So I told them to watch the boring NBC Nightly News at 6:30 with an even more boring Tom Yamas, and you get a 30-second update with a half-second soundbite and 2 words from the anchor. Rinse and repeat. That's what they do on the old-fashioned news, but not here. Not here. It is not to be. So we're asking the question today, is this guy Barry Morphew, is he a cold, calculated killer, or is he a wrongly accused father under siege? And there is some developing news in this case, and that is being brought to us by none other than the Daily Mail. And I will go to Uncle Phil first because we honor the patriarchs here, and he's got a couple years on Scott and I. He is the elder statesman of the show. But Phil Waters in the Daily Mail just released today, a close friend of Suzanne Morphew, a woman named Tisha Leeway. She was one of the leaders in the search efforts for Suzanne Morphew when she went missing back in 2020. And now she is recalling an incident that scared her. And that is when Barry Morphew came out on his own property with a shotgun and yelled at, I believe, an elderly man. He said, "Get the F off of my property." He used the F word. This was against an elderly man who was basically lining up and joining the search effort. As a homicide detective who is often looked for missing bodies, you would think that the husband would be on board. What do you make of this latest revelation, this a little bit of insight, this glimpse into Barry Morphew, a semi-pro? I think the guy had a chance at making the major leagues, never quite made the Toronto Blue Jays. Was a handsome guy in his day, an athlete. Apparently, people had never said no to him, and the wife was getting ready to leave him. She goes missing, and now we've got an elderly man trying to help with the search, and he says, "Get the F off my lawn." Your thoughts?
Well, it is great to be back
Yep.
with you all. Let me say that first. These are, I think, maybe the little spot moments that we are together are a little bit sweeter than the constant barrage of us on Fridays. But I think the whole case is a very interesting case. I mean, he's an interesting character, and knowing his background, and he's the athletic guy. As you said, he maybe had a shot at the Major League Baseball, that kind of thing. So look. not to disparage athletes in general, of course, but there are many of these guys. I mean, I grew up with these guys that are involved in college sports, and some of them went on to the pros. Went to school with a bunch of them, worked out with a bunch of them, and they are they are different. I mean, in the way that they have been groomed to get the most out of their athletic abilities, and some of them rise to the level that they become pros, get to the top of their game, so to speak. No pun intended. So knowing that about him, and he is one of those that has had that that experience in his life. That's how he grew. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure early on it was seen that he had these talents, and then those things were furthered and groomed and trained and so forth and so on. And he's one of those people that responded to that not as a gift for something to get better at and give back. He looked at it as this is what I am, and I've achieved all this good stuff. Therefore, I'm a cut above everybody else in the way that I act, in the way that I treat people, and so forth and so on. So he's in my judgment, having interviewed probably thousands of people at this point, he to me is the classic narcissist. And so I'm not surprised when you take different incidents of this particular story and he responds to this older man. Now, I'm not going to say elderly because he's probably my age, but an older man that was there for the purpose of what? Taking part in the search. Is that what you said?
Correct.
And so this guy's response, I hesitate to say these people's names, of course, but so this guy's response to that offer to assist is to come out with a shotgun and start using profanity and so forth and so on. So I think that is in Scott and my world, that would be a type of admission to the type of person that he is, and especially when it's surrounding that particular incident. So that's a good starting point to determine what his attitude was at the beginning of his wife missing.
I love it, and I like this comment because Phil was condoning his baseball activities, and this guy says Phil is an athletic supporter. Double entendre there, so we have to be careful. If you haven't watched the Friday show, and no one has in a while, because Phil and Scott and actually myself, we've been covering other stuff, doing other things. These guys have busy lives, but it's a little different than the Monday to Thursday. We go off on some tangents. We talk about wacky stuff. We will get there, no doubt. But Phil Waters, one of the reasons we missed a Friday was it was your Marine son's, I believe, 40th birthday. How was that? Happy birthday to him. And how was the celebration?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. We had everybody there, and it was just a great weekend of celebration, and hard to believe that 40 years ago I held this 6.8 pound baby boy in my arms, and now seeing the man that he's become. So
I knew I knew if I went there, we would get some sensitive Phil tears. I was going to say at the birthday, there had to be tears at that birthday. That is for sure. I'm getting emotional thinking of my own son, who's only probably 40 pounds at 6 years old. But imagine having a 40-year-old that's, I assume, Phil, I might be wrong about this, but I would tend to believe that he probably complains less than I would on average. Is that accurate? Is he a complainer? Yeah. Is he the type to complain?
I don't know that I've ever heard him complain.
Carm, hey Carm, are you out there? If you're in the chat, let us know if you've ever heard me. Scott Duffey, you look serious today. Scott, how have the last few weeks been? I saw you were with the legend Ann Burgess. If you noticed on my Instagram, I said it was Dr. Ann Burgess and the legend, meaning that it was actually you who are the legend. What was it like hanging with Ann?
Yeah, we hosted her at Wilmington University at our True Crime Lecture Series, and what a wonderful, down-to-earth human being. So she drove, her and her husband, from Boston area to Wilmington that day.
And by the way,
amazing.
He's in his 90s. He is as remarkable as she is. That guy has started multiple computer companies in his life. I think he's an engineer from MIT. Very smart guy. I don't know where they get their energy.
I don't know. They're a fantastic couple. But she 2 hours easy on her feet, just talking about her life, how she's molded the behavioral science unit, analysis unit, whatever you're going to call it. And just some wonderful excerpts, I think, with regards to a new book coming up in September, I believe. And then, of course, referencing some of her past. So, I mean, the audience just ate it up. Fantastic.
And by the way, that she does have a new book. I don't know the title, but we are going to be doing a show with Ann about the new book when that new book comes out. So Scott Duffey, Suzanne Morphew's remains, they're found now. So she goes missing Mother's Day 2020, which is a curious date. We can ask you or Phil about Mother's Day. Interesting. Goes missing Mother's Day 2020. Remains found September 2023, and they were found in a shallow grave in a place called the Boneyard in Saguache County, Colorado, which is about as remote as it gets. And an autopsy and toxicology reports reveal that she had this tranquilizer, a deer tranquilizer, essentially in her system. It was a cocktail known as BAM. I'm not going to say the separate chemical words because they're too complicated for me and too many syllables. But investigators, the government is saying, look, there's only one private citizen in the entire region who had access to BAM, and that was Barry Morphew. The only other people who filled prescriptions or got prescriptions were people in the wildlife area who were entities, not individuals. The only individual, and now they go and they find this in her bones, Scott Duffey. You guys might call that a clue at the FBI. How strong a piece of evidence is that against Barry Morphew?
Purely circumstantial. Got the wrong guy. I don't know what fantastic. And of all, first of all, you use something that is so unique, so rare, it's able to be traced back to him, and something that he used that how many, and not being a toxicologist, but I would imagine there are substances to be used that you can find anywhere that probably couldn't be traced back to you unless they found a receipt, and to not have that evident in what is left, right, 3 years later. So amazing. I'm just amazed at people every day, especially criminals who try to hide their tracks, and they're just so obvious in what in their manner and so forth, and then to try to get out of it by whatever it is. Everything we've been seeing with him and all the anecdotes with this guy who wants to show up and assist in a search party and anything else, it just goes to show, as Phil and I have talked both on this show and individually in our classes, that the body and the brain are amazing things, and what they give off are just telltale signs, and just follow those breadcrumbs right to guilty.
By the way, who has missed Phil and Scott? And tell us why in the chat. I tell these guys all the time they're the most missed best guests of all the best guests, and let us know. We'll make it interactive. I just saw someone. Here we go, right here. Hi from Northern Michigan. Now, one of my best friends is a meteorologist in Tucson, Arizona. And he's on vacation right now in Michigan, and he was sending me pictures, and it was in the 50s. They're sitting in front of a fireplace, and it is June, I believe, if I'm right. And I have zero interest in being in front of a fireplace in June, but Michigan is a beautiful place. Northern Michigan is beautiful. I just told my friend, let me wait till August if I'm going to visit. Phil Waters, I know how you're going to answer this because I've heard you say it enough times that you're going to say, despite race, color, creed, flavor, male, female, you treat every suspect or person you're interviewing the same. But is there a way to crack a narcissist? Is there an approach that you have with a narcissist who thinks that he is smarter or she is smarter than you, Phil Waters?
Well, of course there is. I mean, you have to do the background on whoever it is you're going to go speak with, and then if it turns out to be someone like this guy, you're going to have to present I think with him, if it were me, you're going to have to find something that I can share with him that would bring us to a life lesson that would start to bring that relationship into, manifest itself where he's going to trust me. A guy like him, now he's a smart guy, or he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, as you said, but you've got to kind of play to his ego. You don't want to talk to him as though he's, stupid. Why would you think to use the BAM thing with the darts and all that stuff? That was kind of silly, wasn't it? You've got to play to his ego. And of course you start this thing by getting to know him, getting to know the history between he and Suzanne. And so you build this thing, and you bring he's got a couple of girls, you bring them into the mix, but it's in that way. If I'm talking to him, I can say to him, I have 2 daughters, so I know exactly what you're going through when it comes to those relationships with your girls, and having to explain what has happened and trying to explain to them where you were in this process. So I would that would be my approach to him, was find something that we have in common. And again, what I always do is realize we treat everybody in that room with dignity and respect. And no matter how bad they are or what horrific an act they've committed, they still want to be loved. They still want to be respected. And they still wanted to take care of the people that love and respect them. They just made different choices about how they accomplish those 3 things. And so that's the approach you take. You don't walk in there and immediately start being judgmental and start questioning him about the incident itself. That never works out well.
Yeah, and by the way, we've got some clips. I'm going to play them in a second, and there is a reason to believe, a lot of reason to believe that the body, or the remains, I should say, were moved and was moved. And I'm going to ask you guys about that. But Blackwood Orr, Republic of Ireland. I miss Phil and Scott. I like the wise and fatherly influence of them on Friday. Love this trio. I've missed Phil and Scott because it's so good to learn from their real life experiences. They are like rare gems. I'm not sure what this is. Wear 2 pairs of underwear. Are they like 2 pairs of underwear, like 2 peas in a pod? I'm not sure. And here, Scott has a chinchilla, so he is cool and smart And Phil has dogs and fancy Hawaiian shirts and Ferraris. Who couldn't miss these two? And look at this. I miss Phil and Scott mucho. Best guests ever. I look forward to their insight as well as their humor. Love you guys. Let me go through this real quick, and then I'm gonna play some sound, and then, you know, we're here to have fun, especially on Fridays. Not always, because sometimes these stories are really disheartening. But with Phil and Scott, we're just gonna chill. So, again, Scott Duffey, only one person had access to this. And by the way, this guy, Barry Morphew, was also a quote unquote deer farmer while living in Indiana, which is where he moved to Colorado from. He also had apparently had some of this BAM acquired in the state of Indiana, which they went back to government and figured that out. A needle cap matching the tranquilizer dart is found in his dryer, along with the same shorts he had from the day before. That's some more what you would call clues. The toxicology reports, this is upsetting, shows that the BAM, the tranquilizer, had time to metabolize, suggesting from the coroner, the medical examiner, that she was not killed instantly, meaning that she was immobilized and vulnerable even before her death. Now, her cycling clothes, when these bones are found, Scott, there are clothes with them, and they are intact. They're not weathered at all. The bones themselves have no insect or animal activity, and that is why they suggest that they were removed from one spot to another, because it didn't have the natural decomposition in that area from bugs and insects. And there was also bleaching, I guess, from the sun. My question to you, the obvious question is here, why would someone move the remains and move them into this very remote area? Because you got to be thinking they're never going to be found. They happen to be looking for someone else when they found Suzanne's remains, but it was literally like a needle in a vast area of wilderness in Colorado that they found. But why do you think the body or the remains were moved, Scott Duffey, if you had to guess?
So is it possible that after this murder and the subsequent, you're getting rid of a body, you're getting rid of evidence, and play into this narrative, she went missing, whatever have you, but your initial disposal site is either too close to home, that you might have realized, and these are just some thoughts, you might have realized that you had your phone, and so now as you go back, not only are you learning things through law enforcement, but you are also probably doing research to say, okay, how could I be tracked? So is it possible that he figured, hey, that's going to be a site or an area that's going, and I'm talking about the initial site, if there is an initial site that is going to be checked at some point. And so in due time, let me redo this. And without any type of digital evidence, no phone, no nothing, he figures out a way to go back to this original burial site, and then with a little more diligence to try to do what he needs to do to continue to dispose of evidence. And so I'm always astonished, and how bodies or remains are found in remote areas, no matter what corner of the world, whether it be a hiker, somebody who just happens to be stumbling, because in your mind, if you're the one who's disposing of a body, you're looking around saying, yeah, nobody comes here, and this is good. Nobody will, it will forever remain a secret. And it's amazing when you just realize different people, different walks of life, how things are found by accident. And here we find law enforcement was there in another case. So it's, I would liken it to probably additional research, afraid that law enforcement is getting closer, and he's trying to stay one step ahead, and then goes about and digs up the remains to and possibly, as I believe, is it right to put additional clothing on? Again, removing clothing that might have been part of the original. So just trying to really change it up. And I think it also shows the mindset of the individual, of trying to just destroy the whole scene and forever not be pointed, even though everything else about him is pointing in that direction.
Yeah, and I think some of the speculation is that maybe authorities got a little too close the first time around. Boo Barry Bonnet here says, so horrifying and sick. Justice for Suzanne. I believe that is coming. Without further ado, let's I've got some clips of Barry here. COE, do you want to, I don't know which one you would like me to play first here. Is it true if you bury someone on a historical site, they're not allowed to dig anything up there asking for a friend? I don't know if this was like reservation land. I haven't heard that is or what. Phil Waters, you would know that. What if someone is buried on reservation land? Is that something that you, as a law enforcement official, can go and dig up without their permission?
Well, I don't. If that's the circumstance, what I would do is I would get with the tribal police, if that's the case, where we have it on some sort of tribal land or reservation, and I would approach the tribal police and say, look, I would bring them into the investigation, and I would say, here we are, these remains have been found, they're on tribal land, we want to make sure we do this right, we want to respect the because the tribes all operate under their own constitution and their own governments, so you want to be respectful of that. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, so I would by blood I would consider that to be something that I would certainly want to communicate to them, and understanding that we want to do this the right way in terms of the way we operate on that tribal land. So yes, I think you would do that as a matter of respect, and a matter of making sure that you are keeping the chain of custody, the evidence intact. You're doing the right things in terms of search warrants, in terms of the proper documentation to get there to retrieve and recover the remains. Because what you have there is you've got another scene that's related to the original site where the killing took place. So, and then you would handle that in that regard. And again, I would incorporate the resources that are there, if this is on tribal land, that are there available by the tribal law enforcement authorities.
Look at this. Scott Duffey, our good friend, PSS, the Philadelphia shoulder surgeon, teamed up with a real estate man now. When narcissistic suspects make such she means obvious, Scott, mistakes, bam, asking the neighbor about the bike. Is it because they think they can talk their way out of anything, or they're too blinded by their own ego? Why did narcissists make mistakes, I think, is PSS's question. We are all good friends, PSS, Scott and myself. Scott, why did narcissists make mistakes?
I was still reading that last segment. Yeah, I would liken that to anybody, with regards to anybody that thinks they're the smartest people in the room. And I've always said about pretty much any case, no matter how much planning goes into something, very little plan goes into the exit plan, how to get rid of things. I mean, they're far and few in between. And so even in this case, regardless of the ruralness and whatnot, and perhaps the second burial site, this is an individual, like many who commit these types of crimes, that they can say, even to evidence that is clear, I deny, and so thereby they're locked in their own head, and it'd be difficult to get them to all of a sudden say, yeah, this is how I did it, and you were too slow, so let me take you through everything now that now that you got me red-handed, and let me tell you how smart I am and what I've done to delay this. I could see a subsequent interview here. I would even liken this to some serial killers where it's like, oh, okay, I've gotten away with it. But we see in so many of them that there's this inner, whatever you want to call it, that they want to be caught. They're kind of trapped by their own fantasies, desires, and then executing these horrible deaths. And finally, when they're caught and they've realized, okay, I am caught, and trial and so forth, then they give like these amazing details of how they got to that point. So I can see similarities here for an individual that is making some major mistakes, and so there's planning here, but what exactly, what kind of plan was there afterwards, and so thereby he's got to play catch up, and he can absolutely, I agree with the surgeon that I would say it's a combination. She's spot on with regards to, I can talk my way out of it, and I believe what I'm saying, so why don't you believe what I'm saying?
Scott, I don't want to put any undue pressure on you. I know I've annoyed you to be on the show, but someone pointed out that chinchillas are social creatures. I know you have Chi-Chi, and if you're not giving it enough attention, the implication is that bad things can happen. So do you feel you're giving your chinchilla enough love?
Oh, I would say that about any domesticated animal. So he lives exactly where we live, and even though he's in a cage and the other animals of the house are not in the cage, they spend a lot of time with him.
Like, will Pearl, your dog, occasionally go get a sniff of Chi-Chi the chinchilla?
So Pearl will. So we have finished basement, and he lives in our finished basement along with my cat. And they, the cat can go up and down, but the cat says I like it quiet down here. But there's a lot of play down in the basement, so we're all there, coming and going. He's seldomly alone, I'll put it that way. And he knows when somebody's coming up, including Pearl. So Pearl will sit down right in front of the cage, and she'll be whining, wanting to talk, wanting him to come out of the cage. But then he does grab the cage like any other criminal, grabbing those bars, and will shake it. And then what he does, once you put your finger, if I don't open the cage, he does like to try to get out. Yeah. But very friendly, will come right up, and then he like any cat and dog just likes to be scratched, all Scott, here and then in the front.
Scott,
I'm not sure he's a criminal, Scott. I think he's more of a hostage.
Speaking of hostages, where's Nugget? And this is a beautiful thing.
He went upstairs. She was over here asleep on the couch,
But Phil, what's the deal? Like, you get to Hawaii and Nugget just literally blows off his own owners the entire time you're in Hawaii? He's in your house?
That's pretty much, yeah.
It comes full circle.
We've gotten to the point now where, and she's always done this, but we are very cognizant of the fact that, she needs to go down there to eat. So we don't feed her, and she will make her little trek down there, and then she comes back. So now sometimes they will sequester her once she gets down there so that she's not spending every night up here. But yeah, she's got a mind of her own, and she goes where she knows she's loved. So there you go.
That is that's them as fighting words. She goes where she is loved, right there. It's a full circle moment hearing Scott talk about Chi-Chi the chinchilla in a cage because Fred, not Ethel, but Fred, she's in the solitary housing unit of our home. I have a sign that actually says San Quentin State Prison. And now my son, before we go out, Fred cannot be trusted. So before we leave, he screamed, my 5 or 6 year old screams, "Get in the shoe." And now he knows. He gets right in the shoe, goes in, he gets locked in. We do an inmate count, 12607. He nods his head, and we're out of the house. So there we go. All right. So Barry Morphew, this is what we're here to discuss. I'm going to play a piece of sound. I have no idea what this is. I think it's from 2020. The COE put it in here. Let's watch. And let's watch a narcissist in action.
Having an affair, what was your first thought?
My heart was broke.
That's not
My heart was broken.
That's his mugshot. But hold on. Let's get him on camera. COE, can you help me here? Oy vey. COE, can you help me here? Here, let me try this.
And was having an affair, what was your first thought?
My heart was broke. My heart was broken. I didn't believe it. Anybody that knows her wouldn't have believed it, and I didn't believe it until they showed me proof. I made them prove it because they kept lying to me about other things. I thought, well, this is another lie to get me to say something, and I made them prove it, and it was just heartbreaking.
Hang on a sec. There's another one. I want to get Phil's take on this, and Scott, obviously.
Before she disappeared, that something was amiss?
No. Macy and I were texting her on our road trip, having the sweetest conversations and sending her pictures of the fun that we were having.
Did you observe any fights, arguments, disagreements between your mom and your dad that concerned you before?
No.
Before her disappearance, Suzanne was fighting cancer.
I know that she was going through chemotherapy for the last couple of years before her disappearance, and I know she was going through some hard things and made some bad decisions. But
what kind of bad decisions?
She was really having trouble with the chemotherapy.
Bill Waters, that makes no sense to me. Making hard decisions about the chemo, that's what you're supposed to do. But here's a guy that if he is convicted of these crimes will be her murderer. And he's saying to this interviewer that he made them show proof, whatever of her being deceased, I think is what he was saying. What would you make of that soundbite and his reaction, his quote unquote emotional reaction?
Well, at the very beginning of that, I don't know if you can do it. If you can,
yeah.
Can
Should
you
we
play the
watch?
very beginning?
Yeah, here we go.
Was having an affair. What was your first thought?
My heart was broke. My heart was broken. I didn't believe it. Anybody that knows her wouldn't have believed it, and I didn't believe it until they showed me proof. I made them prove it because they kept lying to me about other things. I thought, well, this is another lie to get me to say something, and I made them prove it, and it was just heartbreaking.
Was that it, Phil?
Well, was there another clip after that?
Yeah, there was a clip here.
Yeah, show me the next one.
Before she disappeared, that something was amiss?
No. Macy and I were texting her on our road trip.
Okay.
Having the
I know you're going to say, Phil, let me see if I can guess this.
You can stop it right there. When she asked, is there anything amiss? Did you know anything was amiss? The two girls are shaking their head no, and he is shaking his head yes.
That's what I thought Phil was going to say. Let's watch this.
And then the first part of this thing is, of course, there you go. See, that's.
Let's get the audio on this one more time. Here we go. Can't unmute here. Here we go.
Before she disappeared.
It's right here, guys.
That something was amiss.
Right here.
No. Macy and I were texting her on our road trip, having the sweet.
I mean, Phil, can the body lie? So they are literally both
all the time. I mean, Scott and I make our milk money on that kind of stuff. So
Well, they're literally both shaking their head no, but he's shaking his head yes. Is that just
yeah? And the question was, did you you realize there was anything amiss? And then what's funny about it is I think I saw him kind of look at the daughter to his left. I think he kind of got a shot at like, holy crap, but his body can't control what the truth is. And
No.
I'll bring.
Macy and I were texting her
I'm going to take it back one more
before
time.
she disappeared that something was amiss?
No. Macy and I were texting her on her road trip.
One more time.
Before she disappeared that something was amiss?
No.
They're
Macy and I
both
were
shaking
texting
no.
her on
He
her
shakes
road
yes.
trip,
okay,
having
well,
the sweetest.
I'll play it out here without sound. But go ahead, Phil.
well, he's in that moment. I think he knew that, wow, I probably just need to sit still here when he'd already done what he'd done. But the crocodile tears at the beginning of the thing, which he couldn't even produce any tears. So we definitely have no snot. And this whole thing, and then I didn't quite understand what he says is he didn't say she was making hard decisions. He said she was making bad decisions, I believe is the word he used.
I think so. Yeah.
So the question would be, if I'm sitting there and he makes that comment, and the interviewer kind of followed up on it a little bit, but he tried to relate it back to the chemotherapy, which doesn't make any sense. So the follow-up question should have been, what kind of bad decisions was she making? And then when he says, well, it just had something to do with the chemotherapy, I would get, no, well, that didn't really answer my question. What kind of bad decisions was she making? Be specific and see what his response is to that. But this whole thing here, I tell you what, my heart goes out to the girls. He is playing them. This again is emblematic of his narcissistic behavior and his view of himself. And I tell you what, a guy that can sit there between the two girls, his daughters, knowing that he has murdered their mother, just goes to the absolute arrogance and evil of this man. And of course, everybody's going to say, well, he's not guilty, blah, blah, blah. Well, look, we always follow evidence. And in following the evidence here, there is no doubt in my mind that he's your only suspect. He's the guy. There's nobody else on the face of the planet that all of these things, as Scott's pointed out, this, having that particular type of tranquilizer and that kind of a thing. I mean, and then finding, I guess, what was it, a needle in the dryer or something?
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
cap.
These are all affirmative links that points and goes down the only road, and it goes to him. It leads to him. And these are just going to keep getting stronger and stronger.
Listen to this. Investigators removed a port, Scott Duffey, through which Morphew could receive medicine, the chemo, I believe, to treat follicular lymphoma, a type of blood cancer, and found clothing similar to the bicyclist clothes that she was known to wear, which is sickening. Let me play this one last clip, and then we'll get Scott's take on the flip side. Here we go.
You found out that Suzanne was having an affair. What was your first thought?
My heart was broke. My heart was broken. I didn't believe it. Anybody that knows her wouldn't have believed it, and I didn't believe it until they showed me proof. I made I made them prove it because they kept lying to me about other things. I thought, well, this is another lie to get me to say something. And I made them prove it. And it was just heartbreaking.
Morphew denied the marriage was in trouble.
We had a wonderful life, a wonderful marriage. She was just so loving and giving and such a good mother.
Scott Duffey, your thoughts on this particular clip? It's like he's reflecting here. She was such a good mother, almost like he's upset that he took her, and now the daughters don't have a mom anymore. But what do you make? Do you agree with Phil here that there's something off?
Yeah. So he said that she was a good mother. Did he say she was a good wife? I didn't.
I don't think so. Let's go back and listen now. Hold on.
That Suzanne was having an affair. What was your first thought?
My heart was broke. My heart was broken. I didn't believe it. Anybody that knows her wouldn't have believed it, and I didn't believe it until they showed me proof. I made them prove it because they kept lying to me about other things. I thought, well, this is another lie to get me to say something. And I made them prove it. And it was just heartbreaking.
Morphew denied the marriage was in trouble.
We had a wonderful life, a wonderful marriage. She was just so loving and giving and such a good mother.
He's also, Scott, he's kind of victimizing himself, saying, I guess he's talking about the investigator, saying he made them prove it. Like he didn't believe it. Like he's the victim of this, not her. But I don't know. He did say something about the marriage at the end there. But do you agree with Phil that these tears are far from genuine?
Oh yeah, no, I do think that when they being, I take his law enforcement, right? Talking to him about the affair because, hey, you have a missing person. Now you have a confirmed homicide. And so you're going back to that inner circle, family, spouse, family, whatnot there. And then one thing leads to another. It's like, we're looking for a path to take us to somebody else, but everything keeps coming back to the spouse. And so now you want to go and get you're doing a victimology. You're looking at her past. You're looking at the good, the bad, the ugly of the victim. And so there to see, is there anything that's going to connect? And so the fact that he could not admit, because he's trying to steer away. To me, I see this as that's more than likely the reason, as opposed to she's suffering chemo, cancer, this, that. And so a mercy killing, I would probably go down that road, as we're looking for that rationalize, project, minimize, throw it on the cancer, throw it on a mercy killings, throw it on, hey, is this terminal? Well, if it's going to be terminal, I don't want your beautiful daughters to see. And so we made a pact together, right? But the fact that he can't even admit to something about this affair, and that the police had to show whatever that proof was of the affair, goes to show that they're poking at the right nerves, and he's deflecting even more.
A couple more quick things, and we'll move on to true crime stories of the week and other interesting news. So Phil Waters, June 21st, which was 6 days ago, Barry Morphew is rearrested. So he was, I think, 11 days away from going to trial a couple of years back. There was an issue with the prosecutor. Charges ultimately dropped. Now he's reindicted, rearrested in Gilbert, Arizona. He's using a fake name, a pseudonym there, Lee Morphew. He's talking to women using that name, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. But he waives his extradition hearing, and he's expected to be back as early as this weekend in Colorado. My question to you, in your time as a homicide detective, how unusual is it for a case to be dropped, that close to trial, and now the guy gets re-indicted, recharged, and he's right back where he started, but with a lot stronger evidence, it seems like.
I've seen it before, and it is unusual. Whatever the circumstances were, you only get one bite at this apple. So whatever the decision was to drop the charges then, what you don't want to have happening is run in there and go ahead and let's prosecute this guy, and then he gets acquitted, because that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
He can walk out of that courtroom and say, hey, guess what? I got away with it. So that was I'm sure, a tactical decision at the time. We can always come back and re-indict him. We can always make the case stronger. We can let this smoke die down a little bit that's been created here because of maybe some impropriety on the part of the prosecution. Get a whole new team in there and bring it back, and let's get him indicted when we know we have the stronger case. So I don't find anything. I think it was a good decision. And it is a little bit unusual in that sense, but given the circumstances here, I think it was the right thing to do. I think of course, these interviews we're seeing are the first go around.
Yeah. And by the way, I called him Lee Morphew. He was going by Lee Moore here.
Right. So this is the first go around when he's really trying to get out there and plead his case to the public and whoever will listen to him. And I think this business, because I seem to recall that Suzanne had left the house riding a bicycle, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's the allegation.
Her bicycle is found somewhere in the area of where her body is found, but it's like a distance from it and so forth and so on. So, and I don't think there's any, I agree with Scott, I don't think there's any doubt he moved the body. Of course, the use of the BAM and that's a big premeditation piece of evidence. And so he had this thing planned out. He may have even planned out where he was going to take the body, thinking he's going to take it to some remote place and the animals will get to her and that'll be it. Now, putting the clothing there, I think that's really strange, and the bicycle, and the fact that he's maybe anticipating that, yes, she's going to be found at some point.
Yeah. And so the body was never found, but there was, like, what people believed was staged, was a bicycle accident.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying though. But yeah. we got decomposition. We've got remains.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that wherever he put her, he may have been somehow anticipated that she was going to be found. Therefore, he wants to stage this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know, that's just kind of those are questions. Of course, you'd want to ask him in the course of an interview and see what he says. I think it's funny that he couches everything in terms of, you know, law enforcement was lying to him.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to say stuff. And so, and of course you've seen some of these text messages that they were sending back and forth, and she ain't a big fan of his, right? Of him. So
yeah.
You know, so we've got
her last text. She says that she wants to end it civilly, so she was on her way out.
And he's screwing around on her.
Yeah,
I think I've read somewhere. So this guy, this little pity party he's having with the two daughters as bookends is disgusting.
Scott Duffey, to you, final question. Then we're moving on to the wacky stories of the week. You know, you see the daughters in these interviews sitting by his side. Have you noticed that in your own career that, you know, a father gets implicated in a crime, the evidence is building, but the family, for whatever reason, wants to believe in the parents' innocence?
I think you could say that about any loved one. It's very, and so I've never really seen where family is going after the suspect or even people who have turned in their loved ones to say, hey, this person, they will still stand by their side. And so to me, that's very typical, normal behavior, especially two young daughters who probably have a great relationship with the father. The mother is gone, so they they just haven't seen it yet, and they're not willing to accept anything that their father, because now their father is going to be taken away from them. So to me, I see that as quite normal.
And Scott, right here, final comment. My cat's name is Karen. It happened. She goes missing on Mother's Day, 2020. It's a peculiar day for a mother to go missing if she's in potentially a bad marriage. Do you think that was the day that Barry Morphew, I don't know, for whatever reason, he snaps, he couldn't tolerate, it was too painful, whatever it was for him, is that day important?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a question that would be asked by law enforcement. So in his subsequent statements, and we saw in that interview about what is he saying? She was a good mother. I can't lie about that. I mean, we have our own marital issues, both her and I. But I can't deny that she was a good mother. And so you're seeing that part of him trying to and thereby saying, but wife, no, partner, no, friend, no, but mother, yes. And why say that? Because these two daughters of mine on either side of me are supporting me. So at the Mother's Day thing is this is where I would get into the planning. If you have all this leading up to, how many days is he planning this, and then is Mother's Day just around the corner? So make it Mother's Day, because it's not a major holiday in the sense that nobody's working, but it is always a Sunday, right? So there might have been something, the fact that it's Mother's Day and he wants to make a point, or it would be one of my questions if he was talking to understand more about that day, and if something happened that just happened to be that day and then an argument blew up and this was it, or if it was planned days, if not weeks, months beforehand, that, hey, Mother's Day is going to be it. Whether, I don't know where the girls would be on Mother's Day, how much time he had to ultimately be alone and then be able to get rid of evidence in the body.
Someone asked, where did Phil go? Here's the obvious answer. He needs a snack break. And this is a final thing I'll say, and then we'll move on with Scott and I. What about the damaged door frame? There was a damaged door frame in that Puma Path home. I'm sure, as Scott will tell you, we don't know all the new evidence, and I'm sure that's going to come into play. There's what appears to be a semblance of a crime scene in that house. Even with, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was some blood found in there as well. There's also unknown male DNA in the glove compartment of the car. So we'll see where that leads as well. But enough with Barry Morphew. It is a fun Friday. Moving on to another horrific story, and then we'll end up with some lighter stuff. But this is a Scott Duffey topic. There's been a manhunt, Scott Duffey, in Washington State, and it's going on a month, which is hard to believe because I did this when it first broke. The guy's name is Travis Decker. He's accused of a horrific crime, which is asphyxiating his own three daughters, Peyton 9, Evelyn 8, Olivia 5. He has an ex-wife. He's a combat veteran. He was living under dire conditions. He was basically homeless, living out of his car some of the time. He goes on he's granted some visitation. The wife is concerned, and the kids never show back up. And now this guy, who's a survivalist, apparently, is somewhere out in Washington State, and they are basically, authorities are saying, we just don't know. There have been no recent confirmed sightings. We have a feeling that he could still be alive out there in the wilderness of Washington State. What the hell is the FBI going to do in a situation like this? I know they're using, I believe, marshals to try to track them and other things. But what can the FBI? This is a very remote area of Washington State. There's some crazy statistic like 80% of the area can't be reached by road in this county. And this guy apparently can live for quite a while, but how long can you go unnoticed, unchecked, unfound in this county in rural Washington state, Scott Duffey.
Yeah, so it always comes down to the fugitive and the fugitive hunt or the investigation. Um, as we've seen some pretty fantastic fugitive investigations, whether it be the New Orleans or the Ozark Chief, with these prison escapes, and then of course they turn into fugitive investigations. When you're in and around urban life or residential, commercial, the likelihood of getting a phone and being able to be tracked. Residential, if you have hunters out there with their trail cameras or any other type of cameras that people have for surveillance, the law enforcement will always say check them regularly, because perhaps you'll see somebody going by, and that will give us a lead and creating this new perimeter. So here you have somebody that it looks like a tremendous amount of time went into this. And I've always heard about people who are survivalists, but they're not really survivalists. They don't really have a true plan. They're just able to figure it out, have a meal plan. And what I mean by that is, as long as you have sustenance, as long as you can eat, drink, maintain hydration and whatnot, the elements, regardless of how rural, dangerous, at least we're in better months than if this was winter months. So, this is going to be a waiting game, and it's going to be a painstaking between not only the FBI, but bringing in the CBP, bringing in other experts with regards to your search and rescue canines, and then of course using your eyes above, whether it be drones and whatnot, and all those play in whatever the elements are. So all those things, all those tools are being used, but it is a large swath area. So you are going to and you have to pretty much work with daylight for the sake of the safety of the searchers. And then utilizing, wherever, and I could see law enforcement even putting cameras in different locations and trying to see if this person is going to cross in front in order to give them something. What they're looking for are evidence of campsites, evidence of anything, and then to say how long could he have been here, and then developing perimeter. Ultimately, it's a perimeter grid search, and then hopefully getting closer to him. So it's a this could be well into the months, and they're also doing background to say, if he planned for this, are there food drops where he might have figured to put these things in order to continue his survival. It's ultimately going to come down to the elements, how long he planned for, and law enforcement ensuring there's some perimeter that he can't break out of. And it will be painstaking and it will be timely, but he will either be found dead or alive.
Yeah, they said originally that he was a ranger, which turns out I don't think to be accurate, but he did do some combat tours. Phil Waters, this guy Travis Decker, he's been on the run for a month after suffocating his 3 daughters, ages 9, 8, and 5, to death. The only weird thing to me is that there was a blood print found on his car, and he suffocated them. So I don't know where the blood comes from. But Phil Waters, your best guess. This guy's been on the run for a month. Is he alive or is he dead at this point?
I don't know. I guess the scale would kind of be tilted toward he's reached the end of his rope at some point. And of all the things that Scott's talking about here, yeah, I mean, you got to figure that into it. How long did he plan to be out there in the wilderness? He knows he's going to get caught eventually. And, the aspect of, going out there and doing himself. I don't know. I haven't read where we even have any, is the motivation here regarding the custody of the children? Is that what he was? If I can't have him, you're not going to have him.
I believe that was a big part of it. And he was also he was out of work. He was having trouble getting work. He was living out of a car. Things were not going his way.
There's a lot of people out of work living in cars that didn't drive them to murder their 3 children. I mean, their 3 daughters. That's, that's an evil that's unspeakable. I mean, even in the book of Proverbs, one of the 7 things that God hates is the shedding of innocent blood. So there's a special place in hell for this guy. So I would tend to believe that just the period of time that's gone by and his survivability and the elements out there, and to what experience he had in surviving in that type of elements, I'd say that it's because you don't know if he came in contact with some sort of wildlife that took him out that he didn't plan for. I mean, that kind of a thing. It's just such a big area, and he presumably knows the area. He may have gone to some place to do himself in, and thinking that he would not be found, and leave that to be a big mystery of some kind. So I know they've brought in, I think I read where they're bringing in cadaver dogs and that kind of thing. So who knows? I guess we will see, but I think the odds are that they're working on a recovery rather than an arrest.
Yeah, and those cadaver dogs haven't picked up any scent. On to the next story here. Carm, I apologize in advance. I would never do this to you. Aaron Lloyd, 33, Scott Duffey. He has now confessed to injecting his beautiful 65-year-old mother, Lisa Lloyd, with methamphetamine before beating her to death, then stuffing her in a trash can under the carport. This happened in Opelousas, Louisiana. They were tipped off after Lloyd reportedly admitted the murder to someone, I guess, while he was either in custody or out. They found her dead in the bin in the home back on June 22nd. They say he has now calmly confessed, even admitting to giving her meth before the fatal beating. He was arrested, booked into jail, including first-degree murder charges. Scott Duffey, my question here is, why inject mom with meth if you're going to kill her? Why not just kill her? What do you think? And are you surprised by this story, by the depravity of it? No,
not surprised.
So Scott, let me ask you a question. If whatever your partner's name was in the FBI, Joe Smith, calls you and says, Scott, we got to head down to such and such address. This guy just shot his mom up with meth, and she's now dead. Do you just say to Joe Smith, you just say, okay, what's the address? Or do you say, wow, that's crazy. What? He shot her up with meth? What? He shot her? Are you so jaded at this point that you just say, what's the address?
I wouldn't say jaded, but I would probably say is which trailer park is it? That's the and I say that having a summer trailer park, but the having been around many trailer parks where I worked, it was and meth and cocaine were our primary. But my thought would be, and my question would be, does he have a past conviction, charges, whatever have you? Does he have a meth problem? And so thereby she's been trying to get him off the meth for so many years. He's tired of her nagging him about his first love, meth. And so he wants her to feel what a meth addict feels, and what she's been missing, and then the rage of everything else.
You get cast off the screen.
Say again? Oh, sorry. These guys? Yeah, sorry. That's there you go. Thank you. Phil, thank you for the directing. It was actually mesmerizing. That's interesting, Scott. Maybe he was suffering as a meth addict and wanted his mother, who raised him, to feel the same suffering, but who knows? On to the next story here. Phil Waters, you seem like the real manly man that would eat, liver and not have a problem with it. It's a delicacy. People like liver from animals.
I despise liver.
You do? Yeah, I do too, actually. Anyway, there's a guy named the Liver King. His real name is Brian Johnson. If you haven't seen him, so his whole thing is, he's kind of a meathead, no pun intended, but he's this old, I don't know how to, he looks like a caveman with bulging abs. COE, if we can throw up a picture, people will get it. Anyway, the other day he was on his way to Austin, Texas to start a fight with Joe Rogan because this guy, his whole thing was that he was so fit and muscular because he eats organs like livers, kidneys, these other. He's basically the Hannibal Lecter, but not of humans, of animals. And then he was outed for doing steroids, Phil Waters. My question is, who wins a fight, the Liver King or Joe Rogan, Phil Waters? And would you pay for a pay-per-view?
Oh, I might pay to see that. I've seen a picture of this guy. He's been doing the juice. He'd have to eat a pickup truck full of liver, I think, to get those kind of results. But I think that, I don't know. I kind of would put my money on Joe Rogan because I think Joe Rogan would be.
Joe's a trained fighter.
He would be very sneaky. I think he would be. I don't think the Liver King here would see it coming. Gosh, quit putting that guy. There he is. There he is.
That's a liver. A nice natural physique, a natural tan. He's spending. Scott Duffey, on your steroids, do you spend more or less than $11,000 a month? Because Brian Johnson, Liver King, spends $11,000 a month. He claimed, though, that this physique came from his ancestral lifestyle. Now, he is seen on video walking around literally on all fours, like he is a caveman. And he said he was going to go kick Joe Rogan's ass. He said that he thought he could lose because Joe Rogan might be able to choke him out because Joe Rogan is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I personally was appealing to Dana White, the head of the UFC, to set this up as a pay-per-view. I would pay for those abs, actually, not with steroids. But
why was he mad at Joe Rogan? What was the basis of that?
Because Rogan's one of the guys that outed the fact that this physique on the right is not from just eating liver and kidneys. It's from actual steroids. But Phil Waters, in your heyday of weightlifting, did you look like this on the right, Phil?
No. I never ventured off into the world of steroids and that kind of crap because this is all fake, right?
Yeah,
these are fake.
These are real pictures,
temporary results.
Yes.
And I had friends of mine. We were on the powerlifting team at Oklahoma State. I had friends of mine that, man, they ate at the time it was D-ball, Diana-ball, and they would eat that stuff like it was sweet tarts, and. Never ventured off into it. Didn't want to have anything to do with it because I've never wanted to put anything in my body that was some chemical that I didn't really know what it was going to do. So, and as a matter of fact, and I had one of my friends that died at the age of 56 as a result of abusing his body with that stuff. So,
I would just like to take an impromptu poll. Do the women of STS Nation, or the men for that matter, I can care less, do you find Liver King's abs attractive? Let me know. It's quite manly. Scott Duffey I would describe Scott Duffey as sort of sinewy. He's very like wiry. Scott Duffey, if you were 19 shades darker, would your abs reflect this kind of definition?
No, they wouldn't.
Do you think your wife would want them to reflect that kind of definition?
Not at $11,000 a month.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a month. All right. Enough with Dana White. I know you watch the podcast. Set this up as a pay-per-view. I will buy it. Huge mazel tov, as they say, to Jeff Bezos and his wife, whose name I'm forgetting already. It's somewhere in my notes. It'll come to me. But they just got married. They tied the knot. This story that I have in front of me is, what is her first name again? I forget her name. Someone let me know her name. Is it Sanchez? Yeah, Lauren Sanchez. There you go. So Phil Waters, I know you had a fancy wedding, but here they're saying that the costs were somewhere between $44 and $53 million. It's a 3-day bash. Some are saying it was just 11 million, but the odds are that it was much higher in the $50 million range. The event spread across exclusive spots like San Giorgio Maggiore, the Arsenal Shipyard. This is all in the Venice area. He had his $500 million yacht there. Luxury hotels saw nightly rates at about £10,000 a night for this. Bill Gates was there, Kim Kardashian, Lady Gaga, Elton John, Katy Perry. Phil, do you think that this is ostentatious at all?
That's a rhetorical question, right?
Let me ask another way. Do you think
Well,
do you think Jeff Bezos could be spending his money in better ways?
well, of course he could. He could be doing something for the betterment of mankind. But you know what? He's got the money, so why not do it? So I don't fault him. The guy's what? He's a couple $100 billion worth or whatever, and what he's like right behind Elon. Is he number?
I think
2?
they're neck and neck. They say that Bezos is going to be the first trillion. I would agree with Space Coast. It's pretty gross. I would. Oh no, he's talking about the abs. I think we're still on the abs here. I hope these are the abs, not with that. Everyone's saying no.
Of course not, because that's all. But
I'll have to keep my shirt on so I don't upset anybody.
Fake. I mean, her whole head looks like some kind of a something created in a lab, right?
Duffey, I was gonna take my shirt off, but now all the women say they're grossed out by ripped abs, so I'll leave my shirt on. I won't take it off. But Phil Waters, let me ask you another question, Phil Waters. To me, this is like the weirdest thing on earth. Like, you have all the money in the world, whatever. It's just weird to me. Like, do you think Bill Gates is friends with Lady Gaga, who is then friends with Katy Perry? And like, these people don't even know each other. So you're just going to a wedding because you're famous. Like, what? It's just
you're going to a wedding because they got invited. I don't know that any of them, rub elbows with each other, but they're going to for the next 3 days. So it's all. This is all. This is just a big promotion. This is however much money they're spending. Whether it's $4 or $44 million. This is all about egos and look at me. And I would not be shocked if in 6 months they're divorced and they'll carry out whatever the pretrial nups were or the pre-marriage nups were. So
I made that. Go ahead.
These things never last. These people never last. If they could marry themselves, that's what they do. And then they probably wouldn't get along with themselves. So, I'm just telling you, these people that are so, he's a smart guy and a successful guy and all that stuff, but it comes a point in time where, he's turned himself into kind of a physical specimen, right? And I don't know.
It ain't all natural, I'll tell you that.
Personal trainers and, whatever he's, protein drinks, whatever.
Look at Space Coast. He says it's one big ad for Amazon with Prime Day coming up. Yeah.
That may be the case, but I'm just, I don't even, these people, I don't even spend any, other than the fact that their pictures pop up. I don't read about these people. I could care freaking less about these people. So
I have questions for Scott Duffey on this. Scott, if you were invited to this wedding, what would you wear? Would you wear that little hat of yours, that little like fedora type hat? Would you be in a tux? Like, how would you out fashion the fashionistas?
I wouldn't wear a tux, right? Because I'm a guest. Unless you put me in the wedding party, I would wear a tux. Yeah,
you might be in the wedding party.
Yeah, I would have to go on. I would have to go on Amazon and pick something nice out. I would think maybe in the registry he has a nice selection of clothing that you get a discount.
Look, I think rich people are entitled to do whatever the hell they want with their money. I would just like to think that a guy as smart as Jeff Bezos, with the amount of money that dude has, and I'm sure he gives money away, but like there's better ways to spend money is all I'm saying. And Scott Duffey, I made the mistake. I was out with some friends last night, guys, and I asked them if she had to sign a prenup, and these guys all work in finance. They're hysterically laughing. They're like, there's 1,000%, bazillion chance. There's no chance that she did not sign a prenup. She had to sign a prenup. I'm like, well, what's it for? She said probably a few $100 million, which like literally he could just sneeze at. And I was like, well, if I was Lauren Sanchez, I'd ask for 10 billion and he would tell her to go get lost. But Scott Duffey, how long does this marriage last? And does your prenup state that you've got to pay back more than 150 million to your wife?
In monopoly money, yes. It's no prenup for us. So I would venture to say the odds are against this being long lasting. So
Bill Waters, I have a final question on this and then a final story and we're done. See this right here? I just ordered this. This is my little Scream Edvard Munch. It's I've had 3 of these and I drop them every time and they shatter into a million pieces. And this thing weighs a lot, but it's like the little Edvard Munch Scream. Very random thing. How is it possible that I order that on Amazon and it arrives at my door within 12 hours? Like, I just don't understand how this guy built this company. Like, can someone explain this to me? Where does this guy like, I mean, I get like emails because there's a cloud, which isn't like an actual cloud. It's a storage thing for computers. But where does Jeff Bezos have warehouses every 50 feet that I'm not seeing where he keeps all this crap that gets sent to everybody's house in America?
Yeah, there are those. You'll drive along roads and see these freaking warehouses.
I've never really seen them.
I mean, the guy's brilliant. I mean, he's these guys like Elon Musk and Bezos and Gates. These guys, I mean, they found a niche that was unique to them and their brain housing groups, and they capitalized on it. And I mean,
Kimberly, explain this to me in an email. Send this to me. I want detail. I want to know exactly. I want to know all the logistics, secrets or not, of Amazon and how.
I'm sure she's signed a document that says that stuff's not going to get revealed.
Yeah. And I remember. Listen to this. This started out, for those who are younger, as buying online books. And I can distinctly remember having it. Carm will tell you this. We had a conversation. This is before there was online banking, anything. And I said to Carm at one point, we were talking, what moron would ever buy a book on a thing called Amazon? If I bought stock back then, I would be invited to this wedding. But I did not buy that stock. Final story here. So everyone was taking their private jets to get there, by the way. Everyone's on private jets. And what I found out, this is very important, a flight attendant was just interviewed. Her name is Sierra Mist, M-I-S-T-T. She's a big TikToker, and she TikToks about flight stuff and flight attendant stuff. And she has now informed the public that pilots and cabin crew regularly hook up mid-flight, often in the cockpit. She explains, and I quote, "When a pilot steps out to eat or pee, a flight attendant steps in, and that's how it starts." She has participated herself, emphasizing 3 key rules. Number 1, trust your crew. Number 2, pick a smooth route, however you say it. Number 3, swap the pilot for attendant discreetly. And quote unquote, passengers have absolutely no idea what is going down in that flight deck. The plane is on autopilot. Phil Waters, your response.
Well, you know what? There was that's called their, members of the Mile High Club, right?
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 70s, there was a movie called The Stewardesses.
That's, by the way, politically incorrect now. You have to say flight attendants.
Well, I'm just telling you what the title of the movie was. And it was X-rated. And it was a big deal when it came to the brand new big plush freaking movie theater that was built in Tulsa, and at the time. And I just remember of course I didn't really have any concept of what the movie was about or anything else. I just knew that it had the big X on it. And my grandmother went and saw it, which now thinking about that, reflecting on that. And she was a very, she was a Roman Catholic, and so Scott. So I don't know how many. What do you do with the beads? You say penance.
The rosary.
Give me the rosary. Give me 15 Hail Marys or something like that. So,
I never thought I'd hear about Phil's grandmother with a story related to in-flight entertainment, but that's where we've finally circled to.
Well, so regarding the stuff going on in there now, I will say, growing up, I'm a little older than you guys. I remember when Southwest Airlines came around and the gals all wore hot pants and all that kind of thing. And I remember when the stewardesses, or the flight attendants now, I guess you call them.
Yeah, you also can't call them gals, Phil. But go ahead. There's no HR department at STS.
Right. Yeah. Right. So anyway, they were all women, by the way.
Yeah.
And they were, by and large, very attractive women. And so now so I would believe that activity, that kind of stuff going on then, more than I would believe it now, because now the flight attendants, some of them, I mean, they're big girls, and they've kind of got those wide bodies, and I don't know how they even make it down the aisle. All I know is that when they come in there, I get my elbow knocked into the next seat. So I'm not sure that type of activity is occurring and with the frequency that it was. So, and I'm not trying to disparage the flight attendants. I'm just saying that the situation has changed over the years. The requirements for those folks have changed. So I don't know. It may still be going on with select groups, but I think
look at this. I dated a pilot who flew us over Niagara Falls at night, followed by this. I'm not sure what to make of this comment, Scott Duffey. Maybe you can help me out here. This story about sex on the flight deck is ridiculous. I've been a flight attendant since the wild days were still happening. I was one of the wild ones. You could tell some. So is she agreeing with this, or is she saying that this is ridiculous as in it never happened? JT Desert Dweller, please let us know. Scott Duffey, I have no idea what to ask you about this, but
no, I think she participated in it, right? Isn't that what she's saying? But it's not.
Remove the first sentence. I just think.
Well, the story about it is ridiculous. That's what she's saying. The fact that we're talking about it is ridiculous.
I think. I'll say this. I did not want to know this, but I met a cargo, like a guy that flies the 747s around the world, like all over the world. And the stories he tells me, I mean, there's no passengers on those planes, but they literally draw curtains on the windshield or whatever the hell you call it. And they spin around, they're sleeping the whole time. I mean, Scott Duffey, could you sleep comfortably, like just out cold, knowing that there's a plane flying itself? It's like a Tesla driving itself. You're sitting there 30,000 feet in the air. You're just going to turn red. Look at this. Scott's face is turning red.
Yes.
I don't know. It would make me too nervous.
Yes.
Scott Duffey, I don't know. Your final thoughts today, Scott Duffey. Would you ever sneak into a cockpit, Scott Duffey?
Oh, sneak into a cockpit? Like as what?
I don't know. Take a turn. I don't know.
The cockpits I thought used to be open before 9/11.
Yeah.
And you would lean towards the middle of the aisle to kind of see what's happening.
Yeah.
But now are these all post 9/11 day stories? Because they're really interesting.
I don't know, but look, Miss Lil, who would have guessed that we'd go from Morphew to Phil's grandmother and flight decks or whatever? But it's that's what happens on Fridays here.
Hey, I'm reminded of the movie Airplane.
Yeah.
Which is obviously it's a satirical version of what happens on airplanes and in airports and with pilots and all that kind of stuff. So I just remember the classic line by Leslie Nielsen, and somebody walks in and says, Shirley, and he goes, "Don't call me Shirley."
Yeah.
But so if you watch that movie, that's kind of what we're talking about here. That was kind of a, like I said, that was kind of a satire on the airplane industry altogether. But
the remake is coming out, right, with Liam Nielsen?
What? They're doing a reboot?
Aren't they? No. That's not Airplane. That's what's the other one? That's a satire.
Didn't he die? Didn't the guy from the original Airplane die?
Yeah, he did die.
Okay.
It's not Airplane, but it's another one.
Leslie Nielsen is dead. Yeah, the guy that.
Yeah,
Liam Neeson.
You're talking about Liam Neeson,
Liam Neeson. He's doing a reboot though on an old satire, but it's similar to the
Naked Gun.
Naked Gun.
That's Black Widow. Just
that wasn't Liam Neeson.
No,
that's Leslie Nielsen, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
Well, the original, but he's saying the remake is going to be the remake.
He's saying the remake of
Who's on first?
Naked Gun.
See,
the original is Leslie Nielsen, but Scott's saying the remake is with Liam Neeson. It's Spaceballs, maybe.
Naked Gun.
Yeah,
of Naked Gun.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they're not going to be as fun. They're not going to be as good. The reboot, all these old movies that were great when they were originally out, is useless. It's freaking useless. They're not as fun. They're not as good. Mm-hmm. And and the only reason they're doing that is because they can't come up with any decent freaking new movies.
Yeah,
everything's industry's cratering. So
everything is a sequel. Everything is a sequel. Scott Duffey, take us out with some I don't know, like words of comfort for the weekend, followed by Phil, and then we'll sign off here. Anything? Have you been to a Phillies game this year?
Well, I haven't been to a Phillies game, so I've watched quite a few. They haven't been really doing too well. The last 7, 8, 9 games, but yeah, I've been in a whirlwind of teaching, so I've had a lot of fun. I went up towards Pittsburgh a couple of days earlier in the week, Philly the week before, teaching interview. Well, I'm going to call it interviewing. Leave it at that.
By the way, Desert Dweller says never happens in the flight deck. She's implying it happens where they put the concessions together in that little galley. I don't know. I'm just making that part up. Phil Waters, no Nugget sightings. Hope Nugget is well. Hope your wife is well.
He's right here.
Well, is he sleeping? I don't want to wake him up.
She.
I always call him a he.
He's on her little pillow right here.
Yeah, but Nugget sounds
she
like
sneak in? I didn't see her sneak in. She was upstairs.
She was upstairs.
Yeah.
And then
when your camera went off, she came down.
Church. Well, I had to.
Yeah, Sherry, look at this. Hollywood is dead. I watch ST. Screw Hollywood. It's terrible. One movie is worse than the next.
Joel, you just interrupted me.
Sorry. I got excited by that.
We're having a conversation, Joel.
Sorry.
Yeah, we were having a conversation. You jumped in there with something that had nothing to do with
it. Sorry, it was a comment.
But my pastor had come by. Our pastor had come by with a nice Rutan seat that I made a donation to our missions program at our church and put it out on the front porch. So that's why I had to leave to get that over on the front porch. And Nugget was busy directing that activity. So now she's back up on the couch asleep.
Is theft is like porch piracy big there, where you had to break a major production in order to get your seat?
Yeah.
Did I do what? Who? Repeat
that? Scott just wants to know why you had to turn your camera off. You should have invited the pastor in. That's what you should have done. And you said Rutan. Are you talking about like I call it rattan, but you just said Rutan. Is that the correct pronunciation? You're talking like the brown woody stuff, like the brown.
Yes.
So you say Rutan? I've always said rattan, like not Rutan, but rattan.
Look, I pronounced it like I would pronounce it in Oklahoma or Texas. So I don't know. Yours is probably the correct.
Yeah.
I'm just pronouncing it in the manner in which I understand it.
You also say like police and insurance, where in the East Coast
And
we say,
defendant, yes.
yeah, we defendant. I like that. I use that.
In fact, you know what? Real quick, I had a judge in my last murder trial.
Judge? What's a judge?
The last judge in my last murder trial just a couple of months ago, she was about to call a mistrial because I kept referring to the defendant as the defendant. And I teach courtroom testimony. You never refer to the defendant by their name. You do not want to personalize them to the jury. Yeah. And so we had a break, and I went back into the witness room, and the prosecutor came out and said, "You got to quit calling him defendant." And I said,
"Why?"
I said, "That's what he is." She said, "I know, but the judge she's talking about calling a mistrial if you keep referring to him as that." I said, that'll never work. So anyway, I said, "Look," I said, "here's what I will do. I will quit using the term defendant, but I'm not going to refer to this guy by his name." Mm. And she said, "Okay, well, that's." I said, "That's all you're going to get from me." So got back on the stand, boom, 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 did the deal, and he gets convicted. And then the horrible thing about this is a guy that murdered his girlfriend and hid her body. We've never recovered it. And he's a piece of crap and would never say where the body was buried, what he did with it. So you got a family. They're all from Honduras. You've got a family here, and I met with the family. We've got a family here that is brokenhearted about what's happened to their daughter, and this piece of crap doesn't have enough respect to give them the body. And this happened 8 years ago. And when he was offered a plea to produce the body, and we had it all on video. We had everything on video except where he put the body. And his comment was, "Well, the video's grainy." So he gets convicted, and the defense attorney, who I knew was a friend of mine, he was a prosecutor at one point, he decided to let the judge determine punishment, which was a smart lawyer move. The prosecution was asking for life, and the jury, I think, would have given him life. This judge gave him 38 years. She came up with some bullcrap formula about how they'd been searching for the body for 8 years. Something about 12 years, and then some other figure with her daughter, who's now 15, I think. So this crazy formula had come up with this time it was horrible. There was no sense of justice here for this young lady. And
I thought it was standard operating procedure to refer to the defendant as a defendant, unless you're the defense, and then you call him by the name.
Well, she's an old defense attorney. She's not been a judge very long, and in my judgment, horrible. One of the worst judges I've ever been. There was no impartiality. You know, a judge is supposed to look at both sides, and that's how they're supposed to referee these rodeos. In this case, didn't happen. She was horrible. Horrible.
Look at this, Phil. In the UK, if they don't reveal the whereabouts of the body, they don't qualify for parole. Let me ask you, did you have to refer to him by pronouns? Were you then like he, they, she, we? Like, what were you calling him after that? On the stand?
Piece of crap sitting over there. Well, no, fortunately, the prosecutor didn't ask me a question that caused me to refer to him at all.
But what would you have said? Him or he? Like,
I would have just said he.
Yeah.
That's all I would have said.
Phil, any final note, spiritual or otherwise, to take us out here on a Friday?
Well, no, I it's great to be back.
Great to have you back.
It's kind of refreshing. I think we all, it kind of has an atmosphere of not being stale. And I'm sure I said enough things that got a variety of panties in a wad. And so that's, but I always try to strive to, be like Superman, right? Do what's right and always tell the truth. So I just am privileged to be here, and it's always an honor to be here with the STS family and with you guys. And I will say this, and I know all the haters out there will know exactly what I mean. Is this a great country or what?
Love you, America. That's why I sign out. Love you, America. This is the greatest country on earth. No offense to the Republic of Ireland.
And everybody have a great weekend, by the way.
Aloha, mahalo. Love you, the Big Island. Love you, Houston. Love you, Philadelphia. And we love you in Australia. We love you in Ireland. We just here in America, we know that we're America. What can you say? We're the land of the free, the home of the free, the land of the brave, whatever it is. We're all those things and more. And thank Phil for his service in the Marines and his son. See you guys next week. Love you all.